make sure to follow us on Instagram at Whistlethrowers. It's a great way to interact with our show. Our DMs are always open for questions, topic discussions, and more. You will be able to find our new episodes and other announcements there.
We had the Vikings winning the NFC. Here's what. No. Hear me out.
Thanks for tuning back to the Whistlethrowers podcast. I'm joined by Aidan and Jack Slaymaker, and we got a special guest, Arye, who runs
The Sports Place, yeah. How are you doing today, Arye?
I'm good, how are you?
Doing well.
Can't wait to get on here and talk about sports.
Yeah, it's your first podcast, right?
Yep, first ever. I'm excited.
How many did you talk to any other podcasts about getting on episodes?
There was a couple. I think I have another one set up for like next week, but you guys were one that really reached out and got something done, so
yeah, we're pretty serious about this.
Yeah.
I'm glad Jack hopped on the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm happy Aidan brought it to my attention too, because he sent me like your post and you were looking for podcasts, and I was just like, shit, I gotta get on this like ASAP.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to ask you like specifically like how long you've been running the page and how you've been able to grow your Instagram page over the last couple years.
Yeah, so I've been running it since actually the summer of 2019, but that was our first little run at it. It wasn't very successful, so we kind of started back up in 2020. We just kind of grown it naturally. I think a lot of people share posts, on their stories or send it to their friends, and that's how we've kind of grown. Our whole thing is being quick on the news, and I think we live up to our word, and we usually are quickest on the news, and that's why people come and follow us.
Yeah. So when did you realize that your page was really going to start taking off? I mean, 81,000 followers is not a small following at all. So like, when did you really start to realize in 2020, I guess, when your page was really going to start making a following for itself?
Yeah, so like I said, we started in 2020. In the first 3 months, we got 10,000 followers. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of eye-opening a little bit. Like, we can really get something done. And 8 months, we got 50K, and we just kept on growing from there. And I think just steady growth was what made us realize, like, this could be something.
Yeah.
So, Ari, my one question for you is, as someone who does follow the page, like I said to you earlier, and I'll say it now to everyone that's listening, you guys do a great job keeping up with the news, get posts done really quickly. I always knew to go to you guys first. My biggest question is, how are you able to do that? Because it is very hard to keep up with the news, especially sports news that's happening all the time. Is there certain pages that you follow, or are you just always reading? I'm just curious about your process of figuring out when to post.
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of fronts, like in all sports, and you have to kind of pay attention. And I think all the news that happens is predictable, with the exception of the Donovan Mitchell trade, which I think we're going to talk about later.
Yes.
And you just kind of have to just pay attention to all the small details. Like there's a lot of reporters out there, and they report a lot of different things. You have to take everything with a grain of salt, but you also have to look into it and take it like it was true. And when something big comes out, you have to be ready, because there's not a lot of time to get it out. And we just have to stay on top of it and keep looking. There's, like I said, there was reporters, but the bigger reporters usually are the ones to break the news, like Adrian Wojnarowski, Sean Sharania, Adam Schefter, those like that. Right. Those you're kind of looking out for, but you also have to look into the smaller things to be prepared for the bigger things when it actually does happen.
How many people run this operation with you? Is it just you, or do you have people that work with you?
So there's 6 of us. We're all 16 and 17 years old. There's me, Chase, Jason, Evan, Lincoln, and Nathan. The 6 of us, we run Page, because not all of us are free all the time. Like we have school and we play sports, so say one time I'm not available, someone else is on it and ready to go for when the next person comes back.
What was the hardest part for you getting through the struggles of growing your page? You said you started in 2019 and it really didn't get anywhere. So what was the hardest part of getting through that,
I think the hardest part was just kind of getting over the first little hump. You start with 0 followers on every page, and just getting over that first hump. First like 50 to 100 followers. Those are usually the toughest. You usually have to grind those out, and you got to really hustle to get those first couple, and you can kind of build on from there. You can kind of grow your community, and that's just kind of what we did.
You guys do a lot of posting on a lot of different sports. Is there one sport that one of you can focus on a little bit better, or do you all generally know a lot about each sport that you post?
Yeah, we all know a bunch about the sports, but me personally, dude, I would say the NFL or the NBA offseason is just madness.
Yeah, it is.
So fun to keep up with. There's, especially in the NBA, like when that free agency opens, you bet that you have to be on it because there's going to be 15 transactions in the first 5 minutes. And I think just like the quickness of everything that happens at once and like keeping up with all of that is just so fun to me.
Yeah.
And it's great, honestly.
And all the little moves that like don't get talked about as much, you have obviously the huge ones that happen, but then there's like those smaller ones that happen. I kind of like those ones too.
Yeah, for sure. Like the little like underrated transactions, like those are what's going to win people Super Bowls and NBA finals. And
exactly.
And as a brand, like, what's the next step for you guys? Do you have any like plans for the future, or are you just taking it by day?
Yeah, we opened our website a couple months ago. We've been trying to be active on that. Summer kind of started. We weren't very active on that, but we're just kind of trying to keep our website going. Start writing some articles, get some traction on that end. And I don't know if you guys saw, a couple weeks ago we sold these like flags on our page.
I did see that, yeah.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool.
Kobe Bryant one and LeBron James, Dwayne Wade one. We sold a couple of those. Maybe that could be something, but just trying to get better in all facets of it and just keep improving our page and growing.
Do you want to like make a career out of this?
Yeah, I'm not going to talk for the other people, but me for sure. When I go to college, I definitely want to do journalism or communications, and I want to keep going in this because I had some success before, so I'm going to try to do it and be successful with it in my career too.
Yeah, I will say for someone that is going to school for journalism, it's an awesome field to get into. Super competitive, but with the head start that you got just by running this page, you're already off to a better start than like 90% of people that I'm working with and have met. So it's really awesome to hear someone with your experience already trying to get into this field.
Yeah, and I think we were all like surprised like how young you are and how much you like already have like in the game.
I was surprised to hear you guys are 16 and 17. That's actually like incredibly impressive.
Yeah, that's usually the first thing people say. They're like, what? You're in a rush to get to this college and study this? You have so much time. You're like 16 years old.
But you literally can't let up. Like you have to stay on the grind the whole time, like you said. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, keep your grind up, and everything else will come.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of topics. You mentioned earlier Donovan Mitchell got traded to a spot that no one saw coming. And they got like a nice lineup now, in my opinion. Like they're not going to contend to the East, in my opinion, but they're a scary lineup moving forward because they're all young.
I can kind of agree with that. I mean, watching them last year, obviously they were missing Sexton, and that was in the back of everyone's minds, but they still played incredibly well. Mobley was such a great surprise for them because he played better than a rookie should, and the potential he has is crazy right now. And that lineup is just super gritty. Like, they play hard-nosed defense. They get up in your grill. They're all over ball handlers. And then on offense, they're really crisp, like, with their cuts, setting screens. Their passes are always on point. They don't turn the ball over that much. And now just adding Mitchell to that is pretty scary, honestly. If you're a fan of anyone in the East at the top, you don't want to see them in the second round, because we saw Atlanta pull off the upset against us, obviously. That could happen to anyone at the top. I mean, especially a team like Cleveland.
Yeah.
That Cleveland team is scarier than that Hawks team, I think, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, Ari, before I go, I want to hear your take on it before I spew out everything that I have down.
Yeah, I might have to disagree with you. I think I think Cavs, I think they have the team to make a run in the East. Honestly, they got a scary starting lineup, and they have some depth, not a lot of depth, but I think they could be good and could be a good trade for them overall. They could do it. You could see them in the finals next year, honestly.
I completely agree, honestly. I mean, they could definitely,
The one thing I will say, for their bench, it's actually not as bad as some of the other teams in the East. I mean, you got Raul Neto, as you could have him point guard, shooting guard, pretty much wherever. Karis LeVert's your other shooting guard. You still have Kevin Love and Robin Lopez. Pretty much when you go with a bench, you can have some younger guys, more experience. I like the veteran presence that they have, especially because they don't have as much veteran presence in that starting lineup. So to have Love and Lopez in that back end of that rotation, I feel like that can add a lot more experience. I sort of agree with Jack right now, is that I don't see them as a contender in the East for this year. I still have them making the playoffs. Obviously, they were 9th seed last year. You get Mitchell, you automatically become a much better team. I have them as a 6th seed right now. Currently, what I have is I have Celtics 1, Bucks 2, Nets 3. I think any one of those three are pretty much going to run the East. In any order, whatever you decide. I have Sixers 4, Heat 5, Cavs 6. I think that the Bulls and Raptors are going to fall out of the teams that make it in before the play-in tournament, and the Cavs get that 6th seed.
Wait, who do you have in the play-in?
So
I'm going to have Bulls 7, Raptors 8, and then play in pretty much a motley of whatever team is able to make it in.
The East is pretty loaded.
It is.
It is.
It
Yeah.
is.
This is the most loaded we've seen the East in a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're putting Toronto at 8, Toronto's a good team.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good team. And, I mean, Chicago at 7, again, a pretty nice team.
Yeah.
DeRozan and Levine. DeRozan's probably going to be a top 5 scorer again.
Yeah.
And Levine is Levine.
No, and there's no knock on the Bulls or the Raptors. I'm just saying that's how stacked the East is, is that those two teams that were playoff teams last year, I don't have getting in before the play-in tournament.
Yeah, and you, just think about the teams you have to rattle off before those two.
Yeah.
It's Philly, Boston, Brooklyn, Milwaukee.
It's scary. It is very scary.
Is Philly that scary, though?
I mean, but they're above that.
You have... Here's why they're scary. It's not that they've done anything to prove that they can win a championship as much as prove they can get through the regular season, but you've got Harden, who, according to everyone within the Sixers, has slimmed down, is actually in basketball shape, which he wasn't able to do because of his injury. You have Embiid, who is the best center in my opinion, but, whatever the voters decide, I guess. And now you've got Maxey, who's an elite scorer, one of the fastest players in the NBA, especially one of the quickest as well. So those are 3 guys, and then you've got a couple other in that rotation. You got Thibault still on the defensive end. They're still pretty scary. I don't know if they're up there with the 3 teams that I named ahead of them in the Celtics, the Bucks, and the Nets, but they're still a decent team in the East.
Yeah, I completely agree. And
they're very solid.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I do understand your point, Cleveland not really being a contender. But I'm just saying, my point is that they could, just sneak someone,
oh, yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? Nip someone in the bottom. I mean, think about it. If they get Brooklyn in the second round and Ben Simmons does what Ben Simmons does,
yeah,
you never know. I mean, that's a team that they could snip.
I even said this before Donovan went on the team. If they all stayed together, they could run the East a few years from now because all the teams that are on top right now are at their peak. The Heat, they don't have many years left with Jimmy, Giannis. It's going to be hard keeping all 3 of those guys together. And the Bucks, the Nets are going to implode naturally,
right?
And that leaves a lot of open room.
Yeah, I definitely see your point there.
Yeah, it'll be a tough conference, definitely a crack, but
yeah, the playoffs are going to be a bloodbath. That's for sure. That's
they
all
are.
We don't know who's going to come out, but it's going to be crazy.
The one other thing I want to talk about this trade, and it's really not relevant at all, it just sticks out to me, is that Lauri Markkanen was part of this trade.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be the Kristaps Porzingis of the Bulls. Now on his 3rd team. Definitely did not work out. I mean, the unfortunate part about Markkanen, I don't know if you guys remember this, when he was the first 7-foot guy to make 10 threes or something like that. I don't remember the exact amount of threes he made, but he definitely had that potential, but he's more of a role player. Yeah. That's not what the Bulls drafted him as. So I just felt like that was kind of funny to point out.
And I saw this report that Donovan Mitchell was on a golf course when he heard the details of the trade, and he was ecstatic hearing the Cavs kept all their key pieces.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I don't know how true that one is, but
yeah, I know that might be fabricated a little bit.
Yeah. Not sure about that one.
Yeah.
But the Jazz, they were definitely really aggressive in unloading him, but they were patient at the same time.
Yeah.
They wanted to get rid of him.
Yep.
And that's what I was told. I was told they wanted to get rid of him.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked around the league a little bit, and there was an executive who told me that there was no scenario where he would be on the Jazz in their opening night roster. Like, they were sold. They were going to get rid of him.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
that's what they did for sure.
Yeah, with Danny Ainge there, too, like, it's a lot like when he took over Boston at the end of KG, Pearson, Ray Allen's year, and then he shipped them to Brooklyn. And, like, I kind of see him doing that with Utah a little bit, because what Ainge did with that trade sent Boston pretty much Tatum and Brown and what they formulated into a finals run. I could definitely see him doing that in Utah, like something similar. Maybe not making a finals team, but like at least a team that has a good core around it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And while we're on the topic of Mitchell, the mainstream media just loves to rain on the Knicks parade and just shout out the fact that they didn't get a superstar again. So what does this say about the Knicks that they missed out on yet another superstar in the last couple of years?
I'll take this one first. I don't think getting Mitchell for the Knicks would have done that much more to improve their chances. I think they would have definitely been a playoff team, maybe like in the bubble, but they weren't going to be one of the top teams. Like, in my rankings, the Cavs finished 9th last year. I project them at 6th now that they have Mitchell. So the Knicks, which finished 11th, they would have been like 8th or 9th. It wouldn't have been that much an improvement, and they would have had to give up a lot. They definitely would have had to give up Obi Toppin. Brunson would have been talked about, and they just signed him, so there's no way that they're trading him. And then you'd have to trade 3 or 4 picks.
Daddy would step in, though, with Brunson.
Yeah, well, and that's like the whole thing. Like, they would have had to give up so much, and it felt like that the Cavs, they gave up, Sexton was the best player they gave up yesterday. They gave up 3 draft picks as well, but it doesn't feel like they had to give up as much as it was seeming like they were going to have to give up. So it feels like the Knicks would have definitely sold out more, and it just would have put their franchise, I think, farther back in the long run than keeping this young core that they have together.
I completely agree. And the thing with the Knicks is they can never seem to get out of their own way, it feels like.
Yeah, no.
You know, and as good of a player as Donovan Mitchell is Donovan Mitchell really what the Knicks need? I think we may have touched on this in one of the earlier episodes, but would Donovan Mitchell really put the Knicks in any sort of contention in the East? I mean, seriously, would he even get them through the play-in? I still think Toronto would be better. And you had them 8.
Yeah.
So I think even if they got Mitchell, they would be a bottom feeder in the East. At least if they got Mitchell and then had a high draft pick, they could like start building another young core. But at the same time, I really don't see that happening anyway, because it seems that they just miss pick after pick after pick after pick, all in the top 10 and stuff. Yeah, I mean, the Knicks are just doomed, I think.
Yeah, I did say this last episode, like I projected that record with Donovan Mitchell and the Knicks being like 43 and 39. Like they are so middle of the pack.
Yeah.
And that whole roster is just such depleted of talent.
Yeah.
And I actually am really high on RJ Barrett. I think he could take a major leap in a couple years, but like Randall is not that good.
He had one good year. Like, if we're going to be honest, it was one really, really good year that got the Knicks into the playoffs, and that's his ceiling, but he's not going to play up to his ceiling every single year.
Yeah, he hit his ceiling, and he's streaming back down to the floor. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's got a huge contract left on that deal. He's got 4 years, around $105 million.
I mean, this is the thing. Like, the Knicks are just a doomed franchise. They make wrong moves after wrong moves, and like this is where they are. They did it to themselves.
It's all Dolan's fault.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was shocked. When I saw that Donovan Mitchell was traded, and I didn't see New York Knicks next to it, I was absolutely shocked.
I know.
In late July, they offered the Jazz RJ Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, Obi Toppin, along with 3 first-round picks.
Insane. That's basically your whole young core.
Yeah.
And when the Jazz and the Cavs were very close on the deal, the Jazz didn't give the Knicks a chance to match at all when kind of felt betrayed there. It's like there's like a mutual hesitance around the NBA that don't want to make the Knicks better at all. And
I love that.
I mean, for some, that's great, but
yeah,
for the Knicks, you got to feel bad.
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
But so, all right, my one question is, when it comes to that, like when it comes to trading, you said that the NBA teams seem hesitant to make the Knicks better. What about free agents? Like when Durant was rumored to go to the Knicks and ended up going to the Nets, what is it with NBA free agents not wanting to go to the Knicks?
Kyrie and KD were both pretty close to signing with New York. You know, Brooklyn just lured them away.
Yeah.
It's still a free agency attraction for sure. And the Knicks, they'll be open to it too. They still want to improve, and they're looking for ways to get better. But if they are on opening day and they don't get better, they're completely okay if they have to move forward with people. Obviously, they're going to maybe look to move Julius Randle if he's has a down year, but they're kind of okay with just sticking with the team and just keep on going there. They think they have what it takes to sneak in the playoffs and maybe have a sneaky run like they did 2 years ago.
I mean, they were, the fourth seed?
Yeah.
I mean, they were literally the fourth seed.
And you said like you were particularly surprised that he went to the Cavs. Were there any other teams that you heard about besides the Knicks that may have been able to get him?
Yeah, from what I heard, 2 Eastern Conference teams, the Washington Wizards and the Charlotte Hornets were 2 teams that supposed to watch out for. They were going to be in on him. They weren't really in on him. Obviously the Cavs, but the Wizards and the Hornets were 2, and obviously the Knicks, but Cavs swooped in and got him.
Yeah.
Well. Did you know of any like rumored packages between the Wizards or the Hornets?
No, not specifically with the Wizards or the Hornets.
Makes sense.
That's interesting for Hornets to be looking at Mitchell.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm assuming that Ball would probably be mentioned if you're the Jazz, right? Like that's that's the main guy that you're going after, along with the draft picks.
Maybe Bridges too. Cause...
I mean, yeah, but I feel like the Hornets feel like they have a better young core than the Knicks do, so they would be I feel like they especially would be a lot less hesitant considering they've worked all this time to get a decent young core.
Yeah, I don't see a scenario where they give up LaMelo Ball anytime soon.
Yeah, no.
Not even for Donovan Mitchell or even someone higher. Like Durant, like they felt like, no, I'm not sure we want to give up LaMelo.
For Durant, yeah. I completely agree with them, too. I wouldn't either.
Yeah, I mean, LaMelo Ball is, at this point, one of the premier young point guards in the NBA. Right. Why would you give that up for an aging Kevin Durant, who, yes, will be a leading scorer for you, but who doesn't seem to be the type of guy that can fully make a playoff run by himself? I mean, now that he's with the Nets, and we've talked about this, that he has Kyrie, he has Ben Simmons, a lot of other scores that will help them get through the playoffs. If you're on the Hornets, basically he's on his own, especially if they're trading up all these young guys for him. So that would just, I agree, it just wouldn't make any sense.
I don't think it makes much sense for Charlotte to pair him with Mitchell either. No. To pair LaMelo with Mitchell. I don't think that would make much sense for them, to be honest. Because obviously that's what their thought process is if they're shopping for Mitchell. I don't think that makes much sense. I think you should get not a premium big necessarily, but an above average big man that LaMelo can excel the game of. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like he can take an above average big and push him into like an all-star level. You know what I mean? I
think he has that with Bridges, but his future is like really.
Now what are you doing with Bridges? I mean, I don't know. Is he even going to play again? I mean, we have no idea.
He's going to have to sign a vet minimum probably if he wants to stay.
Yeah. Did they cut or release him or anything?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that, Ari?
They didn't rescind his qualifying offer, but it's still out there. But that's all going to depend on, how his legal case is going.
Well, let's transition to the NFL. This is like a 2-part question. So Russell Wilson got a massive extension, 5 years, $245 million. And Lamar Jackson tweeted like laughing emojis at the fact of this. Do you think the Ravens are making a huge mistake if they do not sign him prior to the NFL season? Because Lamar's not talking until after the season if they can't get it done before kickoff.
To be honest, no, because I think that it makes sense for Baltimore to go into the season with a motivated Lamar Jackson. As low as this sounds, like there's not really much Lamar can do in this situation. Like, he can't really hold out. You can't force the Ravens to give him a contract extension right now. And in order for him to get what he wants, he's going to have to go out on the field and play like he did in 2019. I think Lamar Jackson is a super hard worker and is super competitive and stuff. So I think that giving him that motivation is going to increase his play a lot this year. So I think it's smart by Baltimore. Now, if you get into next offseason and Lamar did play like he played in 2019, what are you going to do then? You're going to have to pay him, and it's going to have to be 250 plus, probably. Yeah. And my stance on paying QBs $250 million is I'm on the other side of the fence. I'm on the side Lamar doesn't want me to be on, So I don't know. It's like opening a Pandora's box almost, giving him this motivation.
I do want to point out another high-end athlete who didn't get a contract and is just playing out of his mind this year in another sport. Aaron Judge was not given a contract by the Yankees, is now hitting 54 home runs, and the Yankees are either going to have to pay him or let him walk. The same thing could happen to the Ravens. And as a GM and an owner, you do not want to be in that position to then decide, okay, now he's proven that he's actually this good. It wasn't just a fluke thing, which I don't believe it is for Lamar. I think once he can be healthy on the field, has a bit more weapons, I think that this Ravens team could actually be pretty competitive in the AFC. The AFC is pretty stacked, though. We've talked about this on the show. It is a stacked conference. So it is going to be hard for the Ravens to compete, but if they can and Lamar can put up the numbers he did, the Ravens will have to pay him that. I mean, considering when Kyler Murray just got paid, and I would argue that Lamar is a lot better than Kyler Murray is. So the Ravens are at a weird place right now. I agree with you, Jack. I think that they probably did the right thing, although sometimes it's just better to bite the bullet, because if Lamar plays well out of his mind, Mahomes' contract was $500 million. I don't think Lamar's going to ask for that, but he could ask for something over $250, and now the Ravens are either going to have to pay that or let him walk.
Yeah, I'm actually going to disagree with you. I think they should get it done before the season starts, because I think he's going to play out of his mind, and it's going to get too expensive after the season if he plays well. Him asking $300 million could be semi-reasonable for his talent.
And the market. I
don't know if the Ravens can afford to do that, and they may have to let this guy walk.
Yeah.
And I normally shit on Lamar a little bit. I don't really like his play style much, but I can't imagine the Ravens easily replacing him.
No. And the thing I want to touch on is play style. Although Lamar's obviously dynamic in the mobile aspect of his quarterback play. He's just an elite runner, and there's no quarterback really we've ever seen since Michael Vick that can really compare himself to that. At the same time, I do think Lamar Jackson has a really good arm. He does need to work on some things here and there. Obviously throwing with anticipation for him is one of those things, but I think that he does have good arm strength, and I think that he can be a really accurate QB. That's what I'm saying. Even though people want to harp on him for, obviously the running back thing, it's just a joke, obviously, for the most part. But, that kind of narrative around him, I don't think it's all that true. You know what I mean? That's just what I want to say on his play style.
Yeah, I've spoken to him a couple times, not about this particular situation, but what I know about him and his personality and his character is he's not going to press that panic button at all.
Right,
He is so confident in himself.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm not in tune with what he's thinking, but I think that he would think, the longer the Ravens wait, the price is just going to go up.
Yeah.
When you look at it from the Ravens side, if you don't pay him, he's just going to become unhappy. If you franchise tag him twice, now you have an angry Lamar Jackson who's preserving himself so he can get his money.
Yep.
Rather than making plays for the team because he has a guaranteed contract that he's guaranteed this money, he's putting his body on the line, he's doing all that. So I think he's probably comfortable, just letting it ride.
I agree with that, yeah.
I think the Ravens might be making a mistake here if they don't get him locked in for a while. And on the Russell Wilson side of the things, they do have their guy locked in for a while. Obviously, they've been going from quarterback to quarterback ever since Peyton Manning. But if you look at it from a neutral perspective, he's under contract until he's 40 years old. And it kind of raises the question, how long can he beat himself for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From what I was told, his final season under contract when he's 40, he's going to be making $50 million in his final season, and that contract is going to be backloaded, and kind of raises those questions. Like I said, can he stay at that level for that long?
Yeah. The other issue that I have with the Wilson contract, on top of his age, is the fact that now he's starting to have some injury issues. It's not a lot. It's not worrisome yet. But if he loses that style of play, if he gets hurt and decides to become more of a pocket quarterback, which we've seen happen with scrambling quarterbacks who then realize that they can't keep up with it as they get older, what's going to happen to his play? Sort of, Ari, what you talked about. What's going to happen to his play style? Is he going to be able to do what he's still doing now? Yeah. And personally, I don't think he can. If he's not the athletic Russell Wilson that won the Seahawks Super Bowl, that got them the 3 straight NFC Championship games, he's not going to win you games. And personally, I think Denver is the 4th best team in the AFC West right now. Just based on what the Raiders did this offseason, the fact that the Chargers have one of the best young quarterbacks in Justin Herbert, and the Chiefs are the Chiefs, regardless of losing Tyreek Hill, I am not concerned about them at all.
No.
So, really, the Broncos, like, great, you have your franchise quarterback. You're still competing, like, yeah, maybe you get the 7th wild card spot, but then you're still traveling on the road for all those playoff games. Yeah. I just don't, to me, this contract didn't make a lot of sense. Like, I understand wanting to get your franchise quarterback after not having one for Peyton Manning, but it does almost feel like a Peyton Manning situation where you're getting an older quarterback to just like, hey, we're going to win like one Super Bowl, or at least try to, and if nothing happens, we're going to be screwed for the next 7 years.
Yeah. Let's look at what happened with Drew Brees at the back end of his career too, you know, and that's kind of, Wilson and Brees have a similar body type and, you know, throwing style. So if Wilson's arm can't keep up, you know, they're going to have a lot of trouble, especially paying him that much money, you know, that's going to be dangerous for them.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I want to get a little off topic. You've been subtly dropping that you've talked to like Lamar, and like when I was texting you, you mentioned a couple other athletes. Like, who else have you talked to that's like high profile like that?
There's a couple people. Got kind of lucky that we're talking about Lamar and kind of on those what we're going to talk about later. I kind of try to get in touch with whoever I can and just try to build those relationships, kind of carry them on or whatever. And whoever comes to me, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. How do you reach out, or how do they reach out to you? Like, through what?
Actually, not a lot of people know about this, but you know how we post clips on our page, video clips, highlights?
Yep.
What I do for a bunch of athletes is I'll actually just focus on them for the whole game, and I'll watch the game over, and I'll get specific clips and highlights of just them, send them to them, and usually the first point of contact is through Instagram, but obviously that goes over, you text them whenever big things go on in their lives, you know, congratulate them, and usually it all starts just with the simple video on Instagram, though, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
That's very
really
cool.
Awesome. Yeah, so we'll just quickly talk about this. It's Matt Araiza was drafted earlier this year, and there was some serious allegations against him. We don't want to get too in-depth to it, but he's released from the Bills. How does this kind of compare to like the Deshaun Watson situation? Because they were both like serious allegations, and one player got cut and one's getting paid like $230 million.
Right. I think the main difference is that this girl was underage, first off. I think that's like the one thing that sets people over the top, which I understand, but I don't understand the fact that you won't defend the people who are overage.
Right,
like,
yeah.
I don't. But anyway. And I think that the other difference is Deshaun Watson is an MVP level player, and as disgusting as that is, he's just going to get a pass, and this guy's career is over, rightfully so. You know, if you're asking me, maybe I'm on the extreme side, but in my NFL, Deshaun Watson wouldn't play another game. Yeah. I mean, that's just me, you know. I would hold them all to the same standard level, you know, how you carry yourself off the field. You're just an NFL athlete, no matter how good you are. You're an NFL athlete, and there's a standard you have to hold yourself to off the field. If you don't meet it in that way, I mean, there's just no spot for you in my league, but obviously, you know, I understand that NFL is also a business, so like,
right.
Watson is a marketable player.
Yeah. Jack, actually, we talked about this when you weren't on the show, and had Caleb on as a guest, and we were talking about all of this stuff basically. But the main reason why this is different, outside of everything, Jack, that you said, that the actual information coming out of the case is that the Bills, this was a 6th-round draft pick, 7th-round draft pick, 6th round. So it was very low risk, high reward for the Bills.
Right.
If he ended up being the great punter that he was supposed to be when he got drafted, great. If he gets cut, it sucks because he was supposed to be your starting punter. But at the end of the day, it doesn't change your franchise. Where with Deshaun Watson, you're paying this guy $250 million to win you a Super Bowl as your starting quarterback. Yeah. So outside of all that, and I 100% agree with everything you said, Watson should not be playing. Good on the Bills for cutting Arye, but it's just at the end of the day, it's another unfortunate situation that the NFL has to deal with.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm not speculating anything. I'm not saying he did or didn't do it per se, but when I heard the Bills coach talk to the press, it kind of sounded like they had conclusive evidence that it may have taken place, and that's why they went ahead and cut him, because they were kind of all in on him because they cut their old punter, Mac Hack, I think his name was. And now they're punterless. Yeah. So I'm not speculating, but it sounds like there was some conclusivity. Yeah. And they just made a decision off of that.
Which I think they made the right decision. Because at the end of the day, also, you can find Matt Reza, it looked like he was going to be a really good punter. Yeah. And he could punt the ball, obviously, really far. But you can also find a punter who is really, really, really good, who doesn't have that leg strength in it.
Apparently, they're all over Australia if you've been paying attention to football. So
yeah, that's a pretty terrible situation. Obviously, prayers up to the girl involved.
Exactly, and her family, obviously, everyone.
And like I said, I spoke to him a few times over message before a couple months ago. He seems like a pretty good dude, and I hope for his sake it isn't true, because I read the details of the report, and it was pretty disgusting. I hope, I pray to God that never happens.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
I think
if it does, he got what he deserves, and he'll probably face jail time, honestly.
Yeah, 100%.
In my time of watching sports, I think that was one of the most disturbing allegation that I've ever heard in the sports world.
I agree. I mean, the Ray Rice thing was pretty disturbing too.
Yeah.
Especially when the video came out, but that's right up there.
Yeah.
For sure.
No, I don't remember a case coming out. I mean, there was one other case that I've read about personally, and it wasn't really talked about. Do you guys remember Cravon LeBlanc, who played on the Eagles?
Yeah.
Similar allegation was against him in high school. I have no idea what happened in the case. Apparently, he was pushed under. It could be because what happened in high school, and it was still a little bit before social media. Because I read about it in a book, because it was written by an author who followed his high school team. In 2010. So there's definitely the social media aspect that happens now, so that could be why he got rid of. But that was the only other time I've heard of an allegation up to this level from an NFL player.
Yeah, going back to them cutting Matt Hack, that was questionable to me. I don't know why they really did that, because they knew about these allegations before they cut him. Something happened that must have convinced them beforehand that he didn't do it.
Yeah, right.
It's just a little questionable to me that they did cut Matt Hack. Now they're over here. I think they did sign a punter a couple of days ago. Now they're looking for scrambling for a punter,
Yeah, right.
It didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there.
On a lighter note, we're going to just take this time to rattle off NFL predictions, way too early NFL predictions for the season. Anyone want to open up?
I can go first. So I've got a couple different predictions here. I've got the two teams I have that will finish at least first in both the conferences. Coach of the year, rookies of the year. So the two teams I have finishing first in the conference, not saying they're going to the Super Bowl, but at least finishing first. I have the Bills in the AFC. I feel like that's a pretty reasonable pick. Yeah. And I've got a little bit of a surprise one, but it's not too much of a surprise to me. I have the Vikings winning the NFC. Here's why. What? No. Hear me out. Yes, and here's why. When you look at the NFC North, it is much weaker than it was before. The Packers are not where they were before. You've got the Bears and the Lions who are still going to finish behind. Although I will say the Lions have gotten much better. The coach is what really has a year. Kevin O'Connell was the Rams' offensive coordinator. He did an amazing job. I know that people are going to say, hey, you might not have called the plays. Guess what? Neither did Doug Peterson. He took the Eagles to the Super Bowl in the second year. Yeah. This Vikings team is much better than that Eagles team was that Doug Peterson took over. They finished 8-9 last year with a very questionable coach, not a great culture.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson is already saying that the offense is going to open up a lot more. Kirk Cousins is my one main reason why I'm like hesitant. When I look at any other NFC team, I have so many question marks, and I just have fewer question marks about the Vikings than I do some of these other teams.
Yeah, okay.
I have my MVP being Josh Allen. Coach of the year, I would either have O'Connell or Doug Peterson. I feel like that Peterson is going to take the Jaguars to another level. I'm not necessarily saying the Jaguars will be great, but the AFC South is so weak. I could see them potentially sneaking through, depending what happens to the Colts, because I still have the Colts as the favorites. And then my two rookies of the year are both on the same team. Both on the lines. I have Aidan Hutchinson as Defensive Player of the Year and Jameson Williams as Offensive Player of the Year. I've looked this up. The first time that this happened where a NFL team had both Defensive and Offensive Rookie of the Year was the Lions in 1967.
Really?
And the only other team to do it was the Saints in 2017 with Alvin Kamara and Marshawn Lattimore. So it doesn't happen a lot, but I just feel like the offensive talent, I feel like the harder pick is having Aidan Hutchinson as Defensive Player of the Year, just because there's so many good defensive players. And obviously, not that there's bad picks, there's just way more question marks because it usually goes to a quarterback. There's not a clear-cut quarterback that will win Offensive Player of the Year. Right. So Williams is just my easy pick.
I got you.
I do have one thing to say about your first prediction.
Yeah.
Like, there is this guy in the same division. He's known as the
Oh
Batman.
my, not
God.
this again.
Like, how do you... there's no way, like, they're going to do anything in that division while he's still...
Wait, no. Here's why... No, we are going back to this. 2017, the Vikings finished 13-3 and second in the NFC. Who was their quarterback then? No. Case Keenum, who is obviously worse than Kirk Cousins. Obviously worse. So no, I am fine picking the Vikings with Aaron Rodgers in the NFC because by the way, he doesn't control the NFC North the same way that Brady controlled the AFC East for like 15 years. They are not the same, Jack.
You want to tell that to the Bears?
The Bears are terrible. I don't know what to say. The Bears are terrible.
Yeah, the Bears suck.
They're not good. No. But I'm not saying the Bears. I'm saying the Vikings. The Vikings are actually a decent team.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Aiden. I'm predicting them to go 11-6 and get the 7th seed in the NFC.
You know what I just remembered? You owe me $20 last year.
Yeah, whatever. But
he thought the Vikings are going to win the division.
Last year I thought the Vikings were going to win the division, but I was wrong. Nah, I have Green Bay winning the NFC North still at 12-5. I'll just run through mine real quick. My MVP this year is going to be, I'm taking Herbert, and my Coach of the Year, I'm going to go Sean McDonough. I think the Bills are going to be the best team in the NFL, and I kind of think that Coach of the Year, unless there's a team that really jumps through and surprises, kind of like Cincinnati last year, where Zach Taylor was kind of a candidate at the end of the year. I think it not automatically, but I think it goes to the best team's coach most of the time. Like Vrabel won it last year, and obviously Tennessee finished with the best record, or at least just in the AFC. Then my Offensive Player of the Year, I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson. I think he's going to have a breakout season, much like what Devontae Adams' breakout season in Green Bay. Devontae Adams played behind Randall Cobb a little bit when he first got to Green Bay, and then he shot through and took over. And I'm not saying Jefferson played behind Thielen, because he didn't last year at least. It's kind of a similar situation where it's a veteran wide receiver taking the young guy under his wing, and then that guy just, his talent and athleticism mixed with that veteran leadership just explodes him and blossoms him into this superstar, which I think we're all seeing that with Jefferson. So I think he's going to get Offensive Player of the Year. My Defensive Player of the Year, this might be a dark horse a little bit, but I think the Chargers are going to have a really good defense this year, and I think Joey Bosa is going to put a lot of good numbers. So I think I'm going to have him as my dark horse for the Defensive Player of the Year, because I think that, much like TJ Watt last year, obviously he set the sack record, which is phenomenal, and I don't think Bosa will do that. But I think Bosa coming off the edge with Khalil Mack on the other side is going to boost his numbers up a lot. So I think that Bosa could put up some really eye-opening numbers and take the award this year. And then my Defensive and Offensive Rookie of the Year, much like Aiden, they're both on the same team, just a different team, the New York Jets. My Defensive Rookie of the Year is going to be Sauce Gardner this year.
Like that pick.
I know cornerback isn't a great position for these awards, and I know that rookie corners normally tend to struggle a lot, but I'm a huge fan of Sauce Gardner. I just think he's an incredible athlete, and I think that he's going to have a really, really, really strong start to his career this year. And then my offensive rookie of the year is going to be Garrett Wilson. I think that he is going to have a breakout season. I think that Zach Wilson, that is going to also not have a breakout year necessarily, but he's going to take another step up. And I think that with that, Wilson will be able to put up some good numbers and really impress for the Offensive Rookie of the Year award.
Oh, are they going to have the first letter initials for their first name on their jerseys? Garrett and Zach?
Maybe not Zach.
Zach definitely won't.
Yeah.
As a quarterback, there's no way that I would not. If I was a quarterback of the franchise quarterback, such a Jets draft me as, I would not allow the other team to do that.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah, true. You want to go next, Ari?
Honestly, that would kind of look sick, though.
Yeah, I'll hop in, but I'm still trying to fathom this Vikings pick. Did you say for the entire NFC or the NFC?
No, I said that they will be the 1 seed in the NFC. I usually don't. No, tell me another team that you think will get. Because here's the thing: I don't have any NFC team getting over 12 wins. If they get around 12 wins, it could easily happen.
The Rams?
So wait, you don't think they're going to be better? You don't think the Rams are going to be better?
I think
They're going to be better than the Rams.
I think that the Rams are going to have a little bit of a drop off. I think the Rams will still finish second. I just, again, too many question marks for me, and the fact that they play in a bit harder of a division where, I mean, the Vikings, you get to play the Lions and Bears 4 times. The only easy team, and I'm putting easy in quotes because they're going to drop off a lot, but compared to what they usually do, the Seahawks are still going to be a highly competitive team. They're not going to win a lot of games.
And they're still coached by people.
Right, exactly. So it's a really hard division to play in. And I feel like the Vikings can take advantage of the schedule that they have, considering that they did finish 8-9, so you'll get a little bit of an easier schedule. I haven't looked too hard at their schedule, but just knowing where they fell in, it's going to be a lot easier than the Rams is going to be.
Yeah, no.
You think they have an edge over the Buccaneers too?
Too many injuries for the Buccaneers, and the fact that Brady's getting a bit older. It's not necessarily a knock on Brady, because I think Brady will still put up really, really good numbers like he did last year, but it's more the fact that with the injuries to his offensive line, and if he doesn't stay upright, he's going to feel those hits a lot more. I just feel like that's the reason why I'm not sold on the Buccaneers being the 1 seed. I think they still can be.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that this is like a complete lock for the Vikings, because it does, even to me, I was just looking at it, like, this can't, like, I'm trying to fathom it a little bit myself, because I don't feel great about it, but it's more the fact that I don't feel comfortable with any other NFC team, and I just, like I said, it's more that the Vikings have a lot less question marks than the Buccaneers. Yeah.
And I want to say another thing about Tampa Bay, too, because although I have them going 13-4.
Yeah.
But I do think Tampa Bay's environment is a little bit toxic. It was really just a little bit eyebrow raising when Bruce Arians was let go this offseason, and what's the
Todd Bowles. Yeah.
Todd Bowles stepped in. I just thought that was a little weird. And then the fact that Brady took that time off this year, and it's just, I don't want to put too many labels on it, but it just seems a little toxic to me. So I think that could hold them back a little.
Yeah, I'll do my predictions now after that wild take. So I'm on the Kansas City bandwagon this year. I got the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. I think a sleeper team, Philadelphia Eagles. I think that offense is going to be tough to stop.
We definitely
they got Bratz all over the place.
Yeah.
I said dark horse contender. The Los Angeles Chargers. I mean, just look at their offense.
Right.
There's not much to explain there. MVP prediction, Chiefs again, Patrick Mahomes. I think their offense is still going to be explosive.
Agreed.
They lose Tyreek Hill. That's huge. Don't get me wrong, but they added a lot of receivers. They added Sky Moore through the draft. They signed a couple free agent receivers. I think they're still going to be explosive. Offensive Player of the Year. I think Christian McCaffrey has a huge bounce back year.
Okay.
I think he bounces back from those injuries.
Damn.
I think he's going to be good.
All right.
And Defensive Player of the Year, here's an always reliable one, Aaron Donald.
Yeah, I was going to pick him. But
And my offensive and defensive Rookie of the Years are not from the same team. I'll start with Defensive Rookie of the Year, Aiden Hutchinson. I got to go with the hometown hero, Jahan Dotson, for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a good pick.
Yeah, I think I think he has an opportunity to really, really pop in that Washington offense. They have an older Curtis Samuel. They have Terry McLaurin, who's fantastic, but I think as a number 2 option, they might overlook him, and he might have a great year.
Yeah. What's your outlook on Carson Wentz for this season, I guess?
Yeah, I don't think it's time to hit the panic button quite yet. He had a great year last year. The end came down a little bit. It wasn't the greatest finish, but I think he can still he can throw for a lot of yards. He can throw for touchdowns.
Yeah.
His efficiency can be okay. I think he's still a solid starting quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
I wouldn't overlook Washington.
No.
He could throw it deep, too. He's not that accurate, but his deep ball is better than most, I would say.
Yeah. And the other thing about Wentz, he gets knocked a lot because he doesn't really ever come up in the clutch, but he doesn't turn over the ball a lot.
Right, yeah.
And that was sort of the reason why Indy did okay. He'll always throw close to 30 touchdowns. He'll always throw under 10 interceptions. So he's still a great quarterback from that aspect. He'll always throw around 3,000 to 4,000 yards, somewhere in between there. But it's just the fact that outside of the 1 year where he was clearly the MVP runner, he puts up, good, solid stats. Yeah. He doesn't do more than that, and the issue is that when he was on Indy last year, to get in the playoffs, he needed to win a couple of games that not on his own, obviously you don't lose an NFL game on your own, but definitely that Jacksonville game sticks out to a lot of people. And the fact that when he was with the Eagles, it always took until around December for him to actually play up to the level that we knew that he could play at. I understand that the Eagles always were hurt. They were always using practice squad guys, but it just always felt like that those slow starts were not necessary with the talent that was around him. Right. And then that last year, everything fell apart. And again, not to blame everything on him, but it just feels like that he's one of those guys who's going to be a solid quarterback. He's always going to get a starting job. Yeah. I just don't know if he's going to be that guy that could say, hey, win you Super Bowl. I just don't see that in him.
Yeah, I don't really see that. And it's
for sure.
He sees ghosts in the pocket a little bit, which is you don't want that.
And he's not athletic enough to run around either, like he was. His ACL, that injury, and I feel like that back injury as well, most people don't talk about that because it supposedly hasn't hindered him. But when you have a back injury in the NFL, that is very questionable as you keep aging in your career.
Yeah,
so
especially when he played through it, through 2 months. Yeah. And it's I wonder how much damage he did to that injury, when he was doing that. That was not smart at all. No. He ignored doctors pretty much and just kept playing through a back injury, which is so serious.
Yep.
All right, so I'll run through my predictions. I got Rodgers winning MVP.
Of course you do.
Straight season.
Of course you do.
I think Alan Lazard is going to have at least 1,300 yards on the year.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and my take was hot.
Yeah, okay, let me continue. I think the Saints are going to win their division over the Bucks. I think Derrick Henry will finish Offensive Player of the Year, and I think he's going to be the consensus top running back for that. And I just want to point out, last year, especially from a fantasy perspective, no one talked about JT until Henry went down. Am I wrong?
No, you're...
No.
As soon as he comes back, everyone's going to forget about JT. There's only one Derrick Henry in the league.
Yeah, that's true. No, you're right.
I think Chris Olave, I don't think he's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, but I think he's going to be a top 3 receiver from that class his first year.
Yeah.
I think Eagles are going to be the top surprise. I don't even think they're that much of a prize in a year, but I think they're going to have the biggest jump from last year to this year.
Yeah.
I think, I said this in the first episode, but I think Devontae Smith is going to be held to the same standard that Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase are. I think they're going to be the 3 top receivers under 25. I think he's going to have a better year than AJ Brown. 100%.
Devontae?
Yes.
I could definitely see that because, obviously teams are going to be a little more fixated on Brown. At the same time, I do think that Brown will put up more numbers than Devontae. I just think that Brown is more of, a freak of nature in the sense that he can get open on anyone and catch the ball on anyone. Where Devontae's, he's great at getting open and everything, but can he do it every play the way AJ Brown can? I don't know.
He's getting worse coverage, though. At least
you're right. Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest question mark to me still is how is Jalen Hurts going to look?
Yeah.
He's now gotten a consistent year, and there's still a lot of question marks for me about, obviously not from the physical standpoint. He could still, obviously, he's super athletic. He's got decent awareness. There wasn't too many times where I questioned his mistakes, especially after the Dallas game where he got absolutely blown out. From that point on, I felt like his awareness got a lot better. He didn't make as many stupid mistakes.
And to cut you off real quick,
Yeah.
sorry, but right after that Dallas game, he bounced back against a really good game against KC.
Yeah, no, for sure. But it's just, I don't know. I feel like teams now have another year to look at him. There's still the question about his arm strength. There's still the question about him taking a little bit too much time and trying to throw into tight windows. And not that necessarily there's a lot of interceptions because of that, but it's more that there's a lot of incomplete passes that can happen. So I'm not sold on Jalen Hurts yet. I think that he's a good quarterback. I think that he can still be a star in the NFL, a lot like Wentz. I just don't know if he's a top-tier quarterback the way that a lot of Eagles fans think that he is, or hope that he is.
I don't think a lot of Eagles fans are really sold on it.
There's a lot, it's weird, not a lot are, but there's a lot of people where if you say anything about Jalen Hurts, that's not, he's going to win us the Super Bowl, going to win us the NFC East, there's automatically like, you're a hater. And that's just not it. It's just the reality of the fact that he was a second-round quarterback who got taken out of the college football championship game for a guy who was completely unproven, who then won Alabama that championship game. And then when he was at Oklahoma, like, he put up great stats at Oklahoma. That's not to knock him at all, but he also didn't win the championship there either. Yeah. So it's still the question mark of what's going to happen to him in big games, because he hasn't really, the two big games that he's played in so far, three actually, was the BCS championship, which Alabama was losing, and then he got taken out. Oklahoma, which he didn't win in that, and then the Buccaneers game, which Eagles looked absolutely horrible. Yeah, so,
right. I also got Bills winning the Super Bowl and Stephon Diggs being the leading receiving yards. So.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah,
those picks are solid.
College football night.
Oh yeah, this is where I fall asleep. I'll check in with you guys later. All right, so what do you guys think of Bo Nix struggling against Georgia?
All right, so I am not surprised at all. Like, I don't really know why people are so hyped on Bo Nix. Like, it's not that he's, like, I don't know. I feel like for college quarterbacks, you either need to be top tier in order to get a lot of people talking about you, or you're just sort of, like, middle of the road. And he's definitely middle of the road. Like, he's not terrible, but also, if you look at his stats at Auburn, they weren't, like, eye-opening at all. His best season was 2019. He threw 2,542 yards, which in 13 games too, which is a full season, which just isn't a lot for a college team. And then last season he threw less than that as well. Again, his first full season since COVID. He threw 11 TDs and 3 interceptions, which isn't bad, but still less than 2,500 yards. The biggest reason why Auburn was so good last year was because of Tank Bigsby, their running back, who got nearly 1,100 rushing yards, 10 TDs last season. And that was the big reason why Auburn was able to do anything at all offensively. And I get that Bo Nix had a couple really impressive games. The Alabama game really stuck out last year just because Auburn should have gotten completely blown off the board and ended up forcing that game into overtime. But besides that, like, I'm not shocked that he struggled against the best team in college football.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I don't even care that Georgia's ranked 3 and Alabama's ranked 1. Georgia won the national championship. Stetson Bennett was the national champion quarterback. They're the number 1 team to me, regardless of what the AP poll says. So they got completely blown out. Like, that's what happened to him when he played Georgia, when he was playing for Auburn. Right. Like, I'm not shocked at all. I'm interested to see what Oregon thinks of him after this game. Because clearly he transferred in the program, so it's not someone that they were recruiting heavily at his time before college. So I'm interested to see if at some point they decide to move on from him, or if they're just going to play out the season and see what happens once you get in the Pac-12 play, which will be a lot more up to Oregon's standard because the Pac-12 is very competitive in their field, and then sort of outside the Pac-12, they're not that great.
Yeah, right, yeah. I agree with you, and this is kind of in Bo Nix's career too, when he's playing teams that are up to his par and a little bit below. He will play well and he'll win you those games. But then, like you said, I completely agree with you that Georgia's probably the best team in college football right now. And I think that them just putting a chokehold on Oregon proved that. Like, they made Oregon look like bottom.
Yeah, they literally did to Oregon what Bama did to Utah State.
Exactly.
And Oregon is ranked 11th, and Utah State barely beat Connecticut last week.
Yeah. I completely agree with you there. I think that you're right. I don't think that this is going to be Bo Nix's season. I don't think he's going to struggle much more than he did on Saturday.
You can't get much worse than what happened to him. Like,
and I think that once he gets into the Pac-12 play, he'll have some good games. He'll probably have a stinker or two, and then he might be like a late round selection in the NFL draft. Maybe also undrafted free agent.
I see him more as an undrafted free agent
because I don't really see him playing himself into more than a 5th round pick at most. Because there are teams who might take a shot on him, maybe in the 6th or 7th round. But not more than that.
Yeah, that was for sure really eye opening yesterday.
Yeah,
or not yesterday, Saturday. Georgia just putting it to Oregon, but I think Oregon's still pretty solid. They're not college football playoff contender at all. I'm an Oregon fan. Trust me, there's even a little bias there saying they're still solid, but Georgia has one of the best defenses in the nation for sure, and he didn't perform well against that. He's not going to see that every single game, so I wouldn't hit the panic button yet on Bo Nix, but
neither would I.
Seemed like Georgia did everything right, and Oregon kind of did everything wrong.
Bo Nix won't be the last QB that Georgia makes look like that.
No, considering that Vanderbilt's on Georgia's schedule.
Yeah, there are a lot of QBs coming up who are going to look like Bo Nix did. So I think it says more about. I think that game says more about Georgia than it did about Oregon.
Yeah, the crazy stat that stuck out to me is that Oregon had 140 rushing yards. They had like 8 guys run the ball, and that's all they got. And Bo Nix was the leading rusher with 37 rushing yards. So Georgia is absolutely for real this year if there was anyone doubting them, and I think there's very little people that were. But this was a very much a statement game for Georgia saying and I think there's a little bit of disrespect as well. The fact that Ohio State, which as great as a run as they had to end the season, lost to Michigan and barely beat Utah in the Rose Bowl. And now they're saying, hey, you have us at number 3. We just won the national championship. We don't think we're number 3. And I think that that's a little bit of a statement towards that. But we'll see what happens the rest of the season.
Yeah. And I mean, let's touch on, we can touch on Florida real quick. That was an impressive win for them. They've been struggling to get themselves back on the map too, much like Florida State, who we talked about in one of our recent episodes. A team with a great history, but has really struggled of recently. And I think that was a really good win for them to get a top 10 team coming into the Swamp. And the environment was crazy. Just seeing some of the videos from the crowd and stuff. I mean, just the Swamp and the University of Florida's football atmosphere is just... next to none. You know what I mean? So.
No, it is one of the best in the country. It's unfortunate that it hasn't been talking about because, like you said, they've just struggled so much in the program.
I don't see their ceiling being too high, though. They're not getting past Georgia. They're going to have to get past Georgia to get the SEC title.
I currently have them as 3rd in the SEC East.
Same here.
I think that they don't beat Kentucky. It's a bit of a, this game is going to be very much the question mark. Yeah. Anthony Richardson played really, really well. Mm-hmm. He didn't have any turnovers. He didn't throw for a lot of yards, but he had 272 combined yards, 3 rushing TDs against a very good Utah defense. Yes, they showed against Ohio State, but Ohio State's also Ohio State, that was just an amazing offense that they had last year. But, Utah was able to shut down Oregon twice last year, who was the other best team in the Pac-12. Yeah. So, the fact that he was able to do this against Utah, the 3 ranked games that they have so far is Kentucky, Georgia, and Texas A&M. I kind of have them losing all 3. I think that those might be the only 3 games they lose, so they might finish 9-3 and 8-4 in regular season play, which I think will still be good enough for 3rd in the SEC East. Definitely behind Georgia, probably behind Kentucky. It will be an interesting game next week to see if Florida is actually for real, because Kentucky is still a very highly competitive team, or if this was not that it was a fluke game, but it might just be like a one-off.
Their peak.
Right, exactly.
I agree. The SEC is definitely going to be a bloodbath, though, this year. Once you get to that title game, I hope it's Bama, Georgia.
I don't see how it can't be. Maybe A&M makes a run. That's the only other team that I think is up to that level, and I don't even know if they're necessarily up there. It's more just the fact that they brought in all these recruits.
Yeah,
but they haven't proven enough to me to compete against Bama or because yes, they beat Bama last year, but they also struggled against some of the teams that you have to beat in the SEC in order to be 1 or 2.
Yeah,
and so yeah, you can beat Bama. Bama is not unbeaten. As hard as it is to beat Bama, if you put a decent team together, you can still beat them.
Yeah.
And that's what you saw with Georgia last year. That's what you saw with A&M. And A&M is still going to be very good. But, I mean, if you're not beating some of these other teams, it's not good for your program.
Yeah, right. And it's tough to build any momentum when you need to get to beating, Bama and stuff like that,
For sure. Based off my initial reaction from that game against Utah, Anthony Richardson is a bad man.
Yeah, I like him.
I love his playmaking, and what really stuck out to me from him was his patience. Seemed like he didn't make the wrong play at all, honestly.
No.
Yeah, right. Uh-huh.
And it wasn't just him. It was their running backs they played amazing. Montrell Johnson, his vision and playmaking was outstanding, and another thing that really stuck out to me was Trevor Etienne's explosiveness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You look at that play, that ball gets snapped, next thing you know, in the blink of an eye, he's 15 yards down the field making plays. And I think what's not being talked about enough is Utah played well, too.
Right. Yeah.
They played great. Utah's balanced offense is really solid, and I think both teams should be ranked high.
Yeah.
Just came down to the wire there with a big stop from Florida, but both teams should be for sure in the conversation and ranked.
Agreed. Yeah, Utah's going to play a lot better than they did that game too. For the rest of the season, they're going to be better than they were that night too, which is a scary thing, because you're right, they played pretty well.
What really stuck out to me is that Florida was able to hold Tavion Thompson to only 115 rushing yards, which is still a lot, but when you look at what Thompson was doing to the Pac-12 last year with Utah, the fact that he only got 113 makes me feel pretty confident about Florida's defense as well.
Agreed,
And that was a huge question mark going into the season, was Florida brought in a new defense coordinator, a lot of new recruits, because their defense had played so terribly. They were one of the worst teams. I forget which statistic it was, but it was allowing points per game, I think. They just allowed way too many points for their program. But, I mean, holding Utah to only 26, like both of you were saying, that's a really good step in the right direction for Florida.
All right, so I got two, really quick discussions, then we're going to call it. But on Friday, Serena lost in the third round of the women's singles at the U.S. Open, ending her really illustrious long career in tennis.
Yeah.
To me, she's just female LeBron, and that's just the most impressive career that I've seen personally.
Yeah.
And I just wish her well in her next chapter of life.
And I think I've said this to you a bunch of times, Jack, but tennis to me will always be one of the most underrated sports.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the fact that Serena was able to play tennis for that long at that high of a level, I mean, she's one of the legendary athletes that we will ever see in our lifetime, We're going to be talking about her 60, 50 years down the line. So, yeah, I mean, it was sad to see her go, but I'm just, obviously you smile because it happened kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that second set on Friday night was one of the best rounds of tennis I've ever seen. Sets. Yes, electric. And the fact that, I mean, just the level that she's playing to come back, it just kept going back and forth the whole time. You had no idea who was going to win that second set. And that third one, even though she was down 5-1, it still felt like that there was a chance that she would come back and win, which for someone like you guys were saying, for her age, it's sad to see her go. But I'm really happy that she seems comfortable with it. If she ever wants to come back, tennis fans will definitely be very happy. Mm-hmm. But I think it was also really cool that she decided to do it after the U.S. Open, because she could have done it after Wimbledon. She decided to play one more tournament, I think, in between those two, because she hasn't played a lot this year. But the fact she decided on the U.S. Open, I thought was really, really awesome.
Yeah, she wasn't even the star of the show that night. Ben Simmons showed out, and he got a nice welcome when he was on the Jumbotron.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, she's a GOAT for sure. I mean, look at her accolades and everything that she's done. It's hard to beat. I don't know that you'll see anybody that comes close to her at all.
100%.
In the near future, at least.
Yeah. Especially in individual sports, no one can really do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, Nick Young went on the Volume Sports to get interviewed, and he has been taking up boxing, and you guys can't see me right now, but I'm using air quotes for boxing. But his stance sucks and everything. He kicked my ass still, but anyway, he was asked if there was any player in the league that he would fight, and he said without hesitation, of course, D'Angelo Russell.
Oh my
And
God.
at first, I thought this was really funny, and then I remembered this is not the first time he has let D'Angelo Russell live rent-free in his head. You guys talk about Kevin Durant and his rings not counting. I think they count, but
Yes.
Nick Young was on one of the teams when Kevin Durant was on the team, and I don't even think he played at all, and he won the ring. I'm using air quotes again. And you know what was the first thing he said after he won that ring? I went from getting snitched on to putting a ring on. Like, grow up.
Yeah, I know.
This dude was 18 years old.
He wants
and
to be in the spotlight. He just wants to be in the spotlight.
He was 18 years old
Yeah.
when this happened, and he is mad at a 26-year-old for something he did, a sleazy thing he did when he was 18. When he was
I don't even make
18
much
years
of it,
old.
honestly. They can beef all they want.
hmm But D'Angelo Russell already made an All-Star game. He had a way better career than Nick Young ever did. Off of that basis,
Than Nick Young. Yeah.
he
Way
made
better.
more money than he did off one contract than he did his whole career.
Yeah.
Like, I would be mad too, honestly.
Yeah.
D'Angelo Russell's my favorite basketball player, if you guys can't tell. But next episode, I just thought of this right now. I think we should talk about the Live Tour
Yeah.
and
Definitely.
like the whole celebrity boxing, because I have like strong opinions on this,
Okay.
and it would make us not 1D.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So
All right.
Dude, I think they should just squash the beef and just go at it.
Honestly, let's
Yes.
just go on the
Entertaining.
ring.
They need to televise that.
Yeah.
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 Well, Ari, thanks for coming on and talking with us and providing a lot of insight that we do not have.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Arya.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a blast.
Yeah, for sure,
Can't
man.
wait to come on maybe another time.
Yeah.
You guys.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I had
that would
no
be
idea
awesome.
you were this close too, so we
Yeah.
could do it in person maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm. All right.
Tell everyone else you work with who said what's up.
All right, I will for sure. I'll text them right away after I get off this.
All right.
All right, sweet.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
See you, Ari.
See
See
ya.
ya.
See ya. Thank you.